Delegate Wendell Walker is here. Do you have a nudge word for 2025?
Well, we survived 2024, and hopefully we can do that again in 2025. So maybe survival is something to think about. But procrastination is just a natural thing.
I was going to say, most of that's easy enough for most.
Most people's nudge words are to help them avoid things like procrastination. But survival, that's a good one. I've been reading from some businesses and folks who were just happy to have, at least from a business standpoint, to have survived 2024 because it was a tough year for folks financially, many folks financially, and that's something that the General Assembly perhaps will be considering.
We will definitely be talking about how we can help people with their finances this coming year. And so the General Assembly session starts next Wednesday, and we begin Wednesday morning. And this is something we've been doing for many years, is the Commonwealth Prayer Breakfast here. So we have a number of folks from Lynchburg coming down for that, and then we'll get sessions started. This is what we refer to as a short session this year, the 45-day session. We basically make amendments to the budgets and a few other matters. But it's also election year, and so I think we're going to try to get in and get out without causing too much damage out here. And I noticed this morning, listening earlier on, that Brian really seemed to be rested up and ready to go. So I don't know if I'm your first political target of the day, the new year. But,
I talked to you a couple of weeks ago when Brian was on his month-long vacation. And you did say, since you guys are all up for re-election this year, that it might not be as controversial, maybe less likely to take on some more controversial topics. But there is some tax relief on the agenda, and that's something where you would embrace because, hey, that's very popular to give folks tax cuts.
Always good news, and certainly being down there in Richmond just before Christmas with the governor when he presented his budget here, and the tax reliefs that are being proposed here. Of course, we will have the final say as far as the General Assembly members are concerned. You know, and trying to get 140 members of the General Assembly to agree on a lot of things, sometimes it's a challenge, but it's a good challenge here because when we can give tax relief, this dreaded car tax we've heard for years and years, I think the governor has an approach there by which we can try to phase this out with the surpluses that we have. And so we'll be working through the details of that. You know, income tax credits, we want to make that permanent for the state income tax for people filing their taxes every year. And of course, you know, these restaurants that have all these hardworking waiters and waitresses out here. You know, this proposal to eliminate the tax on these tips. You know, I've been to a restaurant or two, and the folks love this. And this was something that President Trump has proposed, the governor. So, you know, every little bit helps. It adds up at the end of the day. So tax relief is going to be one of the big subjects this year.
Well, let's a couple of questions there. Virginia, a fairly good size budget surplus right now. Can it cover all of this, plus the extra spending that the governor will want to do as far as, say, teacher salaries or law enforcement, that sort of stuff?
Well, certainly that's going to be our priority going into session next week, is trying to determine what are the most critical needs out here that we can help the citizens of the Commonwealth with when it comes to the tax relief. And there's always going to be kind of that give and take a little bit as you work through the budget process. But that's just the normal process of the General Assembly here.
Well, and then, too, I do note that with all of these, say with the car tax, it's not just a straightforward elimination. Yeah. There's rebates based on your income, that sort of thing. You have the income tax credits that are aimed more at lower income Virginians. I think it's fair to say that's the same with taxes on tips. Are those taxes, the cuts relief that is proposed to sort of try to get Democratic votes, maybe make it harder for Democrats in the General Assembly to vote against them?
Well, it's certainly going to put them on the line. I mean, put them on record as far as why can't you give tax relief when we just have this surplus down here? So that's going to be a kind of a political charge as we go forth here. We want to give tax relief to the citizens. The Democrats are going to have to realize, wait, we're sitting here with surpluses. Why can't we help all the citizens? So, you know, that may be a political football back and forth. But there again.
Well, then let's talk about the other dynamic, too, is the House versus the Senate. The Senate is not up this fall. It is the House, so, you know, it may be a little easier for Louise Lucas to lean on Democrats in the Senate.
Well, it may be there. The Senate is not up for re-election for another couple of years. The House, we're all up. 100 members are all up this year. And so I think there's going to be, like I said earlier, some give and take here, realizing that, a surplus is something that the government doesn't need. The taxpayers need that money back in their pockets. So, government's not the answer. Let's give the citizens the relief that they need. Certainly 2024 was a horrible year for a lot of people out here, just struggling to get by. So now that things are looking upwards and we have a new administration coming in Washington, hopefully there's going to be some more, adjustments to spending. We can't seem to spend enough right now, so we got to cut that faucet off here.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. What happens with that in D.C., but we'll leave that for another day.
And I'm still thinking about the car tax because we have a lot of cars in our family that are all still in our name. And so twice a year we get that personal property tax bill, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars both times. And even with what the governor is proposing, it wouldn't eliminate it, right? It would be reduce
a phase.
It.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to be eliminating. It's going to be reducing the amount that we're having to pay right now because of the surplus. We've got $1.1 billion that can go toward this relief fund here. And this is going to be kind of a phase out period. So it's not going to happen just in 2025 here.
So would it eventually be completely eliminated under the governor's plan?
That's the goal, but then that's going to be up to the General Assembly members this year is how we're going to figure this out. Because when you start eliminating this, you got to make sure that you have the funds by which to take care of other needs out here. So whether it's your schools, your mental health, public safety, we can't cut all of these short.
Well, let me ask you on that too. You have a lot of localities who get a pretty fair amount of their income from the car tax. I mean, that is it's where where that goes. Will there be any plan of the General Assembly to hold cities and counties harmless in this? If they, hey, if you lose $200 million, the General Assembly will at least cover some of that.
Well, I'm not in favor or supporter of mandates here. So we want to look out for our localities here. And there's some, when you get into the rural areas, they just barely can make a budget here. So I think it's something we're going to have to carefully look at is how is this going to impact our localities. Northern Virginia has, lots of income up there. Further west you come out here, yes, those pennies do make a difference here. So that's something we'll work through that process on.
And it's something also really important out in this part of the state. So, Senator Bill Stanley's been championing this for a couple of sessions as far as maintenance and infrastructure money for schools. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't schools in Richmond that need money or anything like that, but it is a big deal out in Southwest Virginia, and a lot because of what you just said, just the budgets that smaller localities don't have.
Well, it's true. That's going to be one of the priorities this year. Is while the governor has done, I think, a great job in increasing the pay to public education. Teachers, since Governor Youngkin has come in with his administration, has received an 18% pay increase, which is good because these teachers certainly need it. And we're about 3,000 teachers short here in Virginia when you're talking about the teacher shortage. But then the infrastructure is something else. Our aging schools, whether it's your HVAC, your leaky roofs, and things like that, these are things that cannot be neglected. They have to be maintained. So we have to look at the maintenance costs on this, our replacement costs. Even here in Lynchburg, I think that's going to be a subject matter coming up this year. It's great to have our tax relief, but at the same time, we have a school that the heating went out on this winter, and so what's that going to cost? So these are some things that City Council will be looking at, and then we'll do what we can on the state side. But we want to hold those cities harmless as much as we can when it comes to the debt.
Now, a couple of things going back to, maybe we avoid some of the more controversial topics. Obviously, a big fight last year over skill games, not completely resolved. I do note that at least in Campbell County, they're at all the convenience stores again now. And I know in Lynchburg it is a little bit different. Do you expect this to be taken up, or is it something General Assembly might want to, let pass?
I don't know if it's at the top of the radar, but it is a subject matter that several people have brought to our attention, that we thought we got rid of these games, but they found a way around the law to, bring them back up. And so, yes, they're out there, and we've got to figure out what to do with those.
And on that same topic, we're still in limbo as far as legalization of marijuana in Virginia. It's legal, but you can't sell it or anything like that. Do you think that's going to get as much attention in the General Assembly this year, or is that more of a back burner?
I think that's more of a back burner. Since this is a short session, our priorities got to look at, the fiscal relief, financial relief that we can give, and the schools and public education. So there's a lot of these other little items that we've dealt with in this past year that may not even get on the radar this year going forward here. There's going to be some constitutional amendments that are being proposed this year. We'll have to work through that, but I think for the most part, let's go ahead, find whatever tax relief we can get, make sure that our schools, our mental health, public safety, all of these are major items that need to be funded out here. I mean, last year, 2024, here in the city of Lynchburg, how much violence and gun violence and things we have. So it's not going away, and it's items that we're going to have to address. All
right, it's 7:20 on the Morning Line. We'll leave it there because we'll be talking with Delegate Walker throughout the General Assembly session. Delegate Wendell Walker, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, guys.